Hello and welcome. We are live. It is Sunday. It is time for the weekly debrief. Thank you guys for jumping on. I already see that there's a few comments. Chris, yo, Joe, or yo, Chris, as the case may be. Hello, Larry. How's it going, buddy? Facebook user. If you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, you can allow StreamYard to show your name and picture, so I know who I'm talking to. Or you will remain Facebook user, as will everybody else that has not done that, and I won't know who's who. James, hey, how's it going, buddy? Well, let's get right into the news this week. Should be quick because there wasn't any at all, and it feels like this is like a recurring thing. Like, it feels like the last few weeks there just hasn't been much news, which is a little disheartening. It's the 40th anniversary, and I especially thought that we were going to be seeing stuff every week, every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever the case may be. And don't get me wrong, I'm very, very happy with all the reveals that we've had, very excited for the figures that are upcoming. But I imagined more in hand. I imagined that by, mid-April, we would have a few more figures in hand. But that's maybe that was wishful thinking. Maybe I'm sort of getting a little bit ahead of maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of what's, the logistics and the shipping and all that kind of stuff. But I genuinely thought that maybe we'd be on a little bit more of a normalized delivery schedule. But that's life, I guess. That's sort of the situation that we're in. And we just have to roll with it. That being said, we've got a whole bunch of really great figures. We've got a whole bunch of stuff in the pipeline. We've got a bunch of stuff that we're all patiently waiting on our pre-orders. So there's lots of good stuff, and as you all know, I'm not going to say like I quit. I'm not going to get out of the line. Nothing like that. I'm just saying I very much anticipated that we would have more figures in hand by what is essentially the end of the first quarter of 2022. But who knows? Maybe they're right around the corner. I'm sort of eternally optimistic, that we're gonna get either a surprise drop of figures or a surprise shipment or surprise. I'm always optimistic that that something more is coming, something's in the pipeline. But Larry asks, "How's your Easter?" Well, my Easter's been pretty nice, actually. It's been a little bit cold here, but it's been sunny, and it's been a decent temperature. We've got a little bit of family in town, so we're just sort of hanging out. I'm spending a lot of time getting the nursery ready for the baby that will arrive in a few weeks. So that's taken up a lot of my time, but other than that, in a way, I can honestly say that sort of not having too much Joe news and not having too many figures show up is kind of good news in a way, because I just haven't had time to spend time in here with my toys, spend time playing. James says Joe seemed to be left off the boat, unlike other lines. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just delays with this line. Yeah, I've heard people say that, but I don't know. Maybe it's just production schedules. Like, people sort of say, "Oh, well, we've gotten," um, whether it's, when you have to kind of compare it to Hasbro product, right? So people are sort of saying, we got Black Series, we've got Legends, we've got Transformers. I think that may be true, but I think it may be that like all of those waves got delayed as well. And I think, for every classified wave, there's like 2 waves of Legends and there's 2 waves of Black Series and there's a whole bunch of random Transformers. I don't think they're pumping out GI Joe classified figures at the same rate anyway. And so in context, I think it kind of makes it look like we're getting other lines. That being said, um, I'm waiting on a Throne, the Black Series Throne Boba Fett, and that's not coming either. I'm waiting on that Cobb Vanth. That's not coming either. So it's not. I mean, what I'm saying is in sort of the optics of sort of some things coming out, I think skews the reality of how many Joes there really are to sort of come out. So, but that's just my idea. Chris, I had no idea we would still be waiting to get so many figures in hand. Yeah, it's weird, and it's odd that it's like it seems to me too like we're we're not better off now than we were. Like in some ways, like delivery is like worse than it has been in a while. I was thinking about this morning. Like I was lucky enough to get my bats and my alley vipers from Mike at E-Collectibles. If you haven't pre-ordered your figures, I say this every time. If you haven't pre-ordered your figures yet, go to E-Collectibles and get your pre-orders in. But apart from those two, which were in a way kind of early, now I know that some people are still waiting on theirs, and they might not see them till like July. But um, before that, barbecue, like we didn't get barbecue. Heavy Artillery Roadblock was Amazon exclusive. Major Blood, um, Breaker and Zartan, but Breaker and Zartan were like, it feels like 6 months ago. Like it feels like we just haven't gotten anything. Like I get it. I feel the same way. But that doesn't take away from sort of how much I love the figures that we do have. The Joe Drought is pretty brutal. Yeah, it's a weird one. It's hard to explain. Larry, waiting game now. Everything's pre-ordered with Target. Would send. Everything is pre-ordered with Target. Would send me on stuff and stop charging my card since December. Oh, I think like you mean your pre-orders keep getting charged. Yeah, they kind of did. I think my understanding is like they charge. They charge every month kind of thing. Like like they're basically checking, like a pre-authorization sort of deal. But it is what it is. But sorry, I'm getting these pop-up messages that are kind of blocking the comments here, so I'm trying to get the comments. But I think if Crocmaster Storm, Chris said, if Crocmaster Storm Shadow Spirit, Cobra Officer, Outback, Python Viper, and Python Bat were in hand now, you would feel very differently about the situation. Yes, absolutely. And I can only sort of speak for myself, but I anticipated that we would have all of those figures in hand by now. I didn't think that it would be this long of a wait. I anticipated late February release, maybe early March. They didn't come. They didn't come at end of March. They didn't come at the beginning of April. The weird thing is you do see them sneaking out. There's a couple Crocmasters that people have found. A couple people have gotten, presumably from overseas, the Storm Shadow Spirit. I don't know that I've seen any Cobra Officers. And then, In-Demand Toys has seen Outback and Python, the Tiger Force Outback and the Python Viper and the Python Bat. So they are out there. Like they're physically out there somewhere. And maybe it's just down to logistics. Maybe they're sitting at a port in China, um, and they just haven't made it over. Um, it's kind of one of those things where we just don't know, and I don't know that we'll ever know. So, UK Pulse has the Target exclusives as straight Hasbro Pulse releases now. Yes, and I think that's because it's UK and because they don't have Target, they don't really have to worry about that. I suspect that um, we'll get them at Toys R Us, as has been my suspicion the whole time. But I mean, if they're not in North America, they're not in North America. It's sort of what I'm thinking, and it's entirely possible. Um, and we can order them off of Hasbro. Well, I shouldn't say that. They're listed on Hasbro Pulse. We can't order them off Hasbro Pulse. Um, but I'm not. I'm so torn because there's going to be so many figures. There's going to be such a. Now I know it's hard to sort of imagine that when on the one hand I'm saying like there's all these figures that we're pre-ordering. There's all these pipeline figures, but we have nothing in hand. Um, and I'm saying that on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm saying we have so much stuff coming that I don't know. I don't know if I'm that worried about stuff like the Python bats, the Python vipers. Outback, I do really want because Outback is one of my favorite characters, and that um, European redeco I think looks phenomenal. I really do, and so I really hope that I find him, and I really hope that I can get that figure. But I'm also not in a rush. Like I'm not going to order one from overseas, um, unless it sort of comes out that you know uh, Toys R Us isn't going to get them, or Toys R Us is going to charge some exorbitant amount for them, or whatever. Um, but I mean, that's the news, I guess. Dean, yeah, Canada, no Target. Yeah, I think we'll get them from Toys R Us. And then if we don't, I mean, the other thing too is to keep in mind, like if Toys R Us decides for some reason to like pass on these figures, I can only assume that Hasbro Canada would open them up to other retailers, which means that Mike at E Collectibles and Amir at Toy Snowman and Zed and Outrun and like all those guys would probably, presumably, have these offered to them if there was sort of an excess, in the same way that they do get offered not often, but I know that they do get offered some exclusives when there's sort of extra stock or somebody doesn't pick up um, their full order, whatever. So we'll see. Dean, Toys R Us equals no barbecue yet. Yeah, and I wonder if we'll see him packed with the other exclusives. Like I wonder if it's gonna be like a weird case pack where it's like two Vipers, two Bats, an Outback, and a barbecue. The weird thing is by now it's kind of like if you didn't get a barbecue yet, what are you waiting for? I mean, they're pretty easy to get, I think, even through resellers or other online retailers are having them imported or whatever. There's a million ways you can get these figures, and if you don't have one yet, um, you know, and you want one, let me know and I'll point you in the right direction. I mean, I'm sure I can track one down for you. Um, when I was in Hawaii in January, there was a shelf full of barbecues, so I bought a few for a couple people that didn't have them yet. But July is going to be crazy. It might not. I mean, that's kind of the thing. We just don't know. James said Zavvy.ca had them. Well, there you go. I don't even know what Zavvy.ca is. So, Facebook users said that Outback is amazing. Yes, that Outback is amazing, and I'm very much looking forward to getting that Outback. I think the accessories look great. The sculpts look great. The fact that it's almost entirely, if not entirely, all new molds. is exciting from a kit bashing perspective. So I am very excited to get all these figures. Um, it's just we don't know when we're going to get these figures. But I mean, that's essentially all the news. So yeah. Larry says you can still get barbecue of Hasbro Pulse. Yes, you can still get pretty much all. I mean, again, not they're all listed. They come in and out of stock. You got to be on point to sort of get it. I already got my barbecue, so I wasn't really that worried. But I do know a bunch of people that have gotten barbecue off of Hasbro Pulse, and I wonder if barbecue is going to show up in sort of the quantity that like Baroness did after everybody else had sort of gotten one. Like almost everybody that I know in Canada had a Baroness before Baroness started showing up at Toys R Us. And the people that didn't snatched up that sort of first batch of Baroness. And now every Toys R Us has a shelf full of Baroness figures. And it's like, I wonder if Toys R Us sort of got their numbers wrong. And I wonder if they're going to be a little bit gun shy in terms of how much they order. I wonder if that's why we haven't seen barbecue yet. Again, we will never know. We can only speculate. But Dean, side note, kit bashing and customs, Valverse with your classified. Have any fun mixes to share yet? No, I've not had a whole lot of time. I just put MCU figureheads on those Action Force figures. I only have a couple of them. When I sort of bought a few on the Kickstarter, I was just really hyped for the classified figures, and so a 6-inch military line was kind of cool. I've kind of gone off them a little bit, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I got a couple steel brigades because I just really wanted steel brigades, and other than that, I don't I don't I'm not gonna get the comic book, so I'm not sort of following the lore. So then for sort of kit bashing and customizing purposes, I would rather buy more Hasbro classified figures and support that line than sort of bring in other stuff. I'm looking at stuff like Tiger Force Recondo, Tiger Force Bazooka, like some of the other decos where like we'll have a standard and a redeco. I'm looking at the redeco or the pre-deco, if you will, for a lot of those figures as the sort of kit bashing fodder, because it's already different colors, and I know that it plays nice with other classified parts. So that's my 2 cents on that. Christopher Diagnostic 80 McLeod of the Full Force podcast said, we dropped a monthly today discussing weird and wacky characters we want to see in the classified line in the future. What's the weirdest character you want to see in the line? Well, we will get to that, Chris. We will. I want to talk about different sub teams and stuff today because we're out of news. I mean, we're 20 minutes in and there's not really much to talk about. So I've got tabs open for like a whole bunch of sub teams. So we'll get into that, and we can sort of get into characters as well. Well, let's just do that right now. I mean, let's kick it off. Chris, here's the thing. You dropped that video too close to when I was doing this one, so I didn't have time to watch it. I only watched about 20 minutes of it before I had to sort of prep and sort of get everything ready to do this video. So I'm gonna watch it as soon as I'm done this. So I can't cheat. That's kind of the good news, I guess. I won't be repeating anything that you said, or maybe you did and I just haven't heard it yet. Facebook user says Dark Lawn. Yeah, I think there's a we'll get there, but Larry, wish they do a reissue of the Cobra Trooper number 12. Well, that's one of those weird things where like I think the infantry is just as good, and I don't really see the point of re-releasing, the number 12 again. I get that for sort of the completists, if you've got a hole in your collection where number 12 should be, then you're definitely going to want one. And we're getting a couple of the accessories are coming with the retro Baroness as well, so you can kind of mix and match and sort of put one together in a way, I guess. Hello, Tristan. How's it going way out east? Um, Apologies. Apology accepted. I was uh, I was happy that it showed up. I'm really looking forward to watching it. But Dean says sub teams: Destros, Iron Grenadiers. Okay, so I'll get into sub teams here. Iron Grenadier. This is sort of a good touching point. Iron Grenadiers didn't make my list of sub teams because to me, Iron Grenadiers isn't so much a sub team so much as it is like an actual. Like to me, the sub teams are like redecos and repaints and sort of revisions of certain characters. Iron Grenadiers to me is like an actual thing, just like Dreadnoks. I didn't do Dreadnoks. I didn't do October Guard. Um, Kind of teams within teams didn't really like it was. You'll see what I mean, but for the sake of expediency, like if we talked about Dreadnoks, right, that would have been the whole episode. Like, so um, I hope we get all the Dreadnoks, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. So if we're talking sub teams, then I'm all in on Night Force. Yes, I think. Well, let's get into it. Before everybody just sort of posting their favorite sub team or whatever, because it looks like that might happen if I don't sort of get into it. Let's start with sort of the obvious ones. Let's start with what we were sort of already getting. So we're already getting Tiger Force, right? We were already getting Tiger Force Bazooka, Tiger Force Recondo, Tiger Force Outback. Just looking at the list of figures that they have done in the past in sort of the vintage line or in the modern line, Duke's in there, Flint's in there, Dusty's in there. Now I know we haven't gotten Dusty yet, but um, you know, he's speculated for sort of an upcoming wave. Was he even a pipeline reveal? I can't even keep track. I can't remember. So Dusty is sort of on the table. Roadblock, I think, must be on the table because we got the heavy artillery Roadblock. I can't imagine that they wouldn't reuse that for the Tiger Force, right? And then you had some of the modern versions, right? So you had Stalker, you had Jinx, but then you had like Beachhead. Like I'd love to see the Tiger Force Beachhead. Mutt. They did Tiger Force Mutt. Now again, we don't have Mutt, we don't have Junkyard, but I mean we'll sort of cross our fingers that we get those. And then you get the international stuff. So you get Outback. I could see us getting a hit and run. I could see us getting a regular hit and run as well as like a Tiger Force one because I think that's a great deco. And then just different decos of different characters. But we're already into Tiger Force, right? So we can only assume that we'll see, a couple more of the Tiger Force ones. Chris said, I would love them to do more of the Euro exclusive Tiger Force teams, obviously. Yes, and I think the sort of deeper cuts are kind of fun too because they kind of, they shed light on some aspects of the brand that maybe people weren't sort of aware of, which I think is pretty cool. And it's good. I mean, I think when Outback was revealed, most people knew of that European exclusive deco, but the ones that didn't were like, "This is an Outback. Like, who is this character? Like, what the heck is going on here?" And I think that could be really, really cool to see. Some of the Brazilian versions and some of the Asian versions, some of the European versions, stuff like that. Chris said Duke is happening too. Yes, so we're getting Duke, which great. And again, I already have a Duke. The Tiger Force Duke is cool. I'll definitely pick one up, but it may end up just being sort of for custom fodder. And then obviously the other sub team that we're already getting is Python Patrol. So we've got the Viper. We've got the Bat, which isn't even sort of in. They never made a Python Patrol Bat before now. We're getting the trooper slash officer slash trooper slash, whatever sort of version you kind of want it to be. Um, I would love to see the Crimson Guard in Python Patrol. I would love to see the Televiper both in Standard and Python Patrol Deco. But then, like in 2003, they did Major Blood. They did the Rock Viper, the Saw Viper, Laser Viper, Lamprey, Heat Viper. I could see some of those getting in there too. In the modern figures, they did that the Crocmaster that didn't quite fit the Python Patrol deco for me. Like, it was odd. It's weird to me when there's no green in the Python Patrol, but anyway. Man, I mean, I didn't mention this with Tiger Force, right? But the vehicles, the repainted vehicles, that could be cool too. But so Python Patrol is, we already got. Tiger Force, we already got. Chris says expect Crocmaster with a red Croc. Oh, that would actually, yeah. I mean, the red Croc, or just give me a different version. Even if it's not a red Croc, maybe it's just a different color. More Crocs, the better. You set up a diorama of like a swamp, and you just put all kinds of crocodiles in there. Tristan, still curious what vehicle Tiger Force Duke is coming with. Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'm open to anything. I love the coil. I love the Ram. Whether it's one of those repainted or a new vehicle, I'm good with it. I'm good with all of it. I loved the Tiger Force vehicles when I was a kid, so I'm very much looking forward to getting that one. Now, the coil I have multiples of. The Ram I have multiples of. The Tiger Force one, I'll definitely get one. I don't know how many I'll get. I don't know if I'm going to get 3 or 4 like I have with the other ones, but we'll see. So that's that's the ones that we sort of already have. Now, in terms of speculating what we could get, I think that the next most obvious ones are the ones that I'm going to go over next. So Night Force, to me, in a lot of ways, is kind of a no-brainer. We've already got Outback, so we could get Outback there in Night Force. We've heard the rumors of Falcon, so we could see that. But I could see them doing other stuff too. Again, like later in the line was sort of like Valor versus Venom. They did Beachhead in Night Force, Flint in Night Force, Roadblock, Gung Ho. And then in the modern stuff, we saw a couple more. There was a Night Force Lady J, Night Force Chuckles, Hit and Run. So I mean, we could see the standard Hit and Run. We could see a Night Force Hit and Run. We could see a Euro Hit and Run, Euro Tiger Force Hit and Run. I would love to see some Night Force stuff. I would love to see what they would do with the Night Force stuff. I wonder if they would keep it sort of exactly as they did with these, like whether they would keep the colors exact or whether they would sort of add more accessories, more like. Wonder if they could go. If they could go with like night vision goggles and stuff like that. I don't know. Larry, I want a low light because I love snipers. I would love to see a low light in it, just like they did. I think we say this like pretty much every time we do these videos. I would love to see low light in the way that they did like the Pursuit of Cobra one with like the sort of backpack and the sort of and Bullhorn had it too, right? Bullhorn in the vintage had sort of a buildable rifle in a backpack, and I would love. I just love modular stuff like that. I love having a toy that's a little bit more dynamic like that. So, Tristan, albino croc. Well, we already have a baby albino croc, so I mean, there's already precedence for an albino crocodile. Another sub team that I could very much see us getting, because we already have a couple of these characters sort of either in hand or sort of in the pipeline. is the Slaughter's Marauders. And personally, it's a deco that I love. I loved it as a kid. I still love it now. I really like this combination of colors. Now, Sergeant Slaughter is always a touchy subject because there's people that say we'll never get one in Class of 5. There's people that say we will. Nobody's quite sure, like, the legality. I hope we get one. I don't even love him as a character, but I love that he is a door to, this subgroup. But sort of looking at the figures, right? We've already got Barbecue in hand. Spirit is hopefully on a boat somewhere or on a truck somewhere or something like that. We keep hearing, people want Mutton Junkyard. We keep hearing people want Low Light. I would love to get a Footloose, just the standard release, and then you could do that in class in the Slaughter's Marauders as well. And again, like, cool vehicles and like sort of imagining some of the vehicles. Now, I don't think we're gonna get an Equalizer, but that would be pretty cool if we did. So those are sort of a couple more of the sub teams that I think are fairly predictable and fairly, like, safe bets. Which isn't to say that they're a lock, but I mean, with Target doing the exclusives and sort of with exclusives, right? I think it's fair to assume that at this point, Hasbro sort of figured it out that if they do sub teams and sort of redecos through Target or through Walmart or whoever, through the exclusive channels, they're not gonna sort of offend as many collectors. Maybe. It doesn't mean they're easy to get. I get it. Some of these are harder to get, but I think availability will get better. I think the logistics will get better. I think all this will get better. I think all the people that were in the line, because it was hard to get, and what we saw in the first little bit of all the crazy price gouging for figures, I think will sort of go away as we start getting more and more of these in hand. At least that's sort of me optimistically thinking that to be the case. But Chris, Lightfoot needs to happen now. Yeah, I think he's got to be on the short list with the amount of fans that Lightfoot has. He's got to be on the short list for both the standard and the Night Force deco. If Lightfoot doesn't happen, I will riot. It will be a quiet riot, I think. If it's for Lightfoot. Slaughter's Marauders deco is so gorgeous. Yes, it's just, I mean, it's such a simple, it's so simple, but those colors are just such a good combo. Tiger Force is great, but it's for me, it's a little on the nose. Slaughter's Marauders, I find a little, I don't know. There's just something very engaging about the blue and the brown and the shades of green. That's just personal preference. Tristan, exclusives are easier to accept when they're repaints. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's kind of something that Hasbro's figured out, or I hope that that's something that Hasbro's figured out. The pre-decos, if you will, the alternate colored versions of characters arriving before the standard release, to me, is genius marketing. Excuse me. Hasbro knows that we want Outback. Hasbro knows that we want Bazooka. They know that people want Recondo. I don't necessarily want Recondo, so I don't use we for Recondo, but many people want Recondo. By giving us the pre-paint burst, we're all going to buy it because we want the character. And then when the standard release comes out, we're going to go, well, I got to get that one because it's the standard, even though I already have the pre-deco. That to me is a masterstroke. And criticize Hasbro all you want for trying to get our money. They're a company. They're doing their job correctly if they are getting our money. So I do not fault them for anything that is sort of a successful marketing ploy. Larry said, "Trust me, the way Hasbro repaint Transformers to use the molds, we get it all." Yes, I think if there's a repainted version that exists, Hasbro will do everything that they can to repaint a figure and get it to us. Economically, too, it makes perfect sense, because you're going to increase your profitability. You're going to sort of decrease your costs. So it's win-win, to do redecos and repaints. And as a kid, we bought them. So like all the people kind of complaining and whinging about like, oh well, we already got 4 roadblocks and I want another one. Well, then don't buy it. When it comes out, put your money where your mouth is and don't buy it. But when you do buy it, after complaining all that time about saying how you don't want it, I won't be listening. Moving on to some more sub teams that I very much think that we could get, should get, but maybe a little bit more sort of. I don't know what the odds on these ones are going to be. But sort of after the obvious ones of Night Force and Slaughters, Marauders, I think, I was going through them all, and I think the next most likely one is probably Ninja Force. Agree or disagree? What do you guys think? Technically, we've already gotten this version of Storm Shadow. The Arctic Assault Storm Shadow is essentially the Ninja Force Storm Shadow. We've got Snake Eyes in Ninja Force. I think any sub team that gives us a version of Snake Eyes, I love the idea of. I would love this Scarlet as well. I think that Scarlet design is really, really good. Tristan says Ninja Force Zartan. I don't think it's a stretch to assume that we would see Ninja Force Zartan, which I would love to see, especially if they include, if they include the accessory of the daggers on the leg, the mohawk. I would love to see the Ninja Force. Sub team that I loved as a kid. Chris says, not many repaints in Ninja Force, but as a sub team, I definitely want it to happen. I need that Night Creeper as well. Tristan said, give me that orange mohawk and lime green pants. Yeah, absolutely. There's not a lot of, not as many repaints, but I think you could, I think in some ways they could fudge it a little bit. And what I mean by that is I don't know that they would, I don't know how authentic they would have to be to the figures. One thing that I noticed about Mindbender is that Mindbender is using the upper arms and the torso of Zartan. So that's where I'd say, sometimes they can kind of fudge these things maybe a little bit better than we can imagine, which is why they're designing the figures and we're not. So I think they might be able to get away with some of these. And the Kamakura figure, I think, lends itself to at least a few of these, right? So you've already got the Storm Shadow in the line, like not even a repaint or anything like that. I could see them putting a little bit of money into doing the Snake Eyes. And then I think from the Snake Eyes, same way that we saw with the Red Ninja, I think you could sort of reuse the Snake Eyes to sort of put together, a couple of these. Now, do I think we're going to get all the Ninja Force figures? No. Do I think we could get a few of them? Yes. I definitely think so. Will it be sort of the ones that are fully new molds? Probably not. It'll probably be more likely, exactly, Chris. Slice for sure would use Kamakura parts. So between like the Kamakura parts and the you know, Ninja Snake Eyes parts, the Arctic Storm Shadow parts. I think you could already put together a few figures, just different head sculpt, different forearms, or a different accessory. In the same way that they've been doing it with, like the Duke Buck has been used for a few different figures, right? So in the same way that they've done that, and in a lot of ways we barely noticed, I think they could do a few of the Ninja Force figures. Now, again, like I said, I don't think we get all of them, but I think they'll touch on it. And that sort of brings us to I got sort of two more kind of sections, and I'll do one kind of briefly, and then I'll sort of come back. So the next thing I'll move on to is sub teams that kind of appeared later in the line, less popular, maybe less glamorous, but really easy ways for Hasbro to reuse parts because there's a bunch of characters that get sort of reissued. And this is like Valor versus Venom when they started doing 2-packs or like box sets of figures where they would sort of do a deco across a team, sort of sell them as a box set. But like, for example, the Anti-Venom Task Force from 2004. We've got Duke in there, we've got Roadblock in there, and then Barricade, Charbroil, Mutt, and Sergeant Lifeline. We've already got a couple of them. They could sort of use this deco for other figures, right? We could, if we don't get a Tiger Force Beachhead, maybe we get an Anti-Venom Task Force Beachhead, or something like that. In the same sort of vein, we also have like Desert Patrol Squad, again from 2004. Again, like not one that people are sort of banging down the doors to get. But we've got Dusty in there, Gung Ho, Scarlet, Stalker, Snake Eyes, and Tunnel Rat. I mean, if we get a Tunnel Rat, I can see that. Not my favorite version of Snake Eyes. He looks kind of weird in that deco. That being said, reuse, repaints, bring it on. We don't all have to buy everything, right? Maybe you'll see one of these decos and it doesn't do anything for you. But just in terms of like what is already out there, what the precedence sort of was set, reusing figures that already existed. Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes, I'm just bringing them up here just to get a better look. This version of Snake Eyes, this mold of Snake Eyes, is my favorite mold of Snake Eyes. The version 4 Snake Eyes would be great, and if they're gonna do the version 4 version, maybe sort of they can justify it by sort of coming up with this deco as a reuse. Purely speculative, but Chris, I really like these and would love to see them use those decos. I would love to see them use these decos too, and part of the reason is, again, like I said, earlier when we were talking about using like the European versions of things, you have sort of that core G.I. Joe, that sort of 82 to like 94 stuff that was released in North America. That stuff's all great. That stuff's fantastic. But there's so much more than that. And the European stuff, like we said, the South American stuff, the Asian stuff, the later stuff, right? The stuff that, not as many people bought. Not as many people were still collecting Joes in 2004 when Snake Eyes came up. But why not? The decos are there. The possibilities are there for them to do this stuff. Tristan, wasn't there a Desert Force logo that popped up on shirts the same time as the new Tiger Force and Python Patrol logos? You could be correct. There was a ton of logos that came up. There was sub teams that had never even existed that kind of popped up, I think. I really like that Cobra Ninja team too. Well, we're getting there. It is, in fact, the next page that I have to share. The Ninja Cobra Strike Team with Black Dragon Ninja, Red Ninja Viper, Storm Shadow, Vipra, and Vipra. So there's two different decos for Viper, two versions. I don't even really know. But that Storm Shadow, green Storm Shadow, I think is an awesome. I think it looks really good. And then you could redo the red ninjas, or you could redo you could reuse versions of Storm Shadow. You could piece in that Kamakura figure. Hopefully, we get Jinx, and so if you get Jinx, you can easily get a repaint for another character. And again, it just it sort of pulls fans into sort of the whole history, right? When we talk about the 40th anniversary of the 82 GI Joes, and like I said, for a lot of people it kind of ended at 94, but it didn't. And I mean, the fact that we're talking about it today in 2022 just goes to show that it's still alive and well. And so I hope they sort of pull from all of that. Chris, I feel like they revealed about 500 new logos that day. Yes, and I wonder, I'm probably not the only one in sort of thinking about this, but they revealed that Tiger Force logo when they revealed all those logos. They must be planning to use more of them, and then it's just a matter of like which ones do they plan to use and which ones were just sort of thrown in to get us off the scent. Remains to be seen, but it'll be interesting to see sort of what comes of all those logos. Maybe maybe we'll do a live and we'll sort of go through all those logos and sort of, or maybe after a couple more of them come up. But another sort of late addition to the sub teams, again 2004, but this time, and again on the Cobra side, but the Cobra Strike Team Urban Division, Storm Shadow repaint. There you go. That's an easy one. Firefly repaint. Perfect. We've already got him. Alley Viper repaint. Perfect. We've already got him. Night Creeper. I mean, I'll take all the decos of the Night Creeper. Scrap Iron's in there. I know I'm not the only one that wants Scrap Iron to make it into the line. So again, here's an opportunity for them to do a pre-paint, of Scrap Iron, or a pre-paint of the Night Creeper in this color. That Night Creeper, the purple Night Creeper, though, is pretty deadly, though. So, Tristan, those logos seem like planning for the future. Yes, absolutely. I very much think that it was one of those approaches of like, if we just put it all out there, people will kind of forget. Like it'll be like too much, and people will just like be overwhelmed, and they won't focus on the fact that they're already seeing what we're going to show them much later on. Facebook user, Scrap Iron needs to be in classified line. Yes, I agree. I think he's a great character. I think the accessories could be amazing. I've said it before, and I will repeat it as many times as I need to until it shows up. But like his rocket launcher and all that kind of stuff will be super, super fun to see in the line. I could see him as being sort of like a deluxe figure too. Like if they really sort of build out that rocket launcher and make it a little more than what it was with the vintage figure. Chris is looking at all those logos again, and there was a Desert Scorpion logo. Yes. So I mean, hey, maybe these ideas seem crazy until they're not. But yeah, I mean, there's tons of deco possibility that I think has a lot of potential, and it's easy, right? Like a lot of these are just easy repaints. They're not even well, let's get into some of the less easy versions of characters and sub teams. Let's start with what I think would be such a timely sub team, because it's sort of the topic. It's the topic of our times. when we talk about the environment, we talk about global warming, we talk about all the sort of detrimental effects that humans have. Obviously, it's eco warriors. Um, I I mean, I don't even know what to say. The eco warriors are sort of one of those things where um you either love them or hate them. I think eco warriors is one of those things that deep six and Finback or I'm riding again. Yeah, that's how I feel too. It's sort of like, you have the opportunity to do these figures. You gotta take that opportunity. Now, for anybody that isn't familiar with Eco Warriors, Eco Warriors was sort of introduced when the Deke cartoon, um, sort of the second version, if you will, of the GI Joe cartoon, series two or sort of whatever you want to call it, where they fought. They didn't really fight against like they didn't really fight against eco terrorists. They just fought against cesspool. Um, it's they unfortunately they sort of split it into two pages on Yojo. So I'm pulling all these pictures from Yojo.com. If anybody's curious. So cesspool was sort of the leader of the baddies, and then you had the sludge viper and the toxo viper, and then there was Major Blood and the toxo zombie. And then they had the septic tank, which was sort of the disgusting version of the his tank. Um, as well as the septic his tank in the modern figures. But um, they were um, they color changed. They came with um, essentially water guns, like weapons that you squeeze them and they would shoot water. Um, Deep Six, of course, infamously came with Finback. And if you're curious who Finback is, Deep Six's animal companion was a dolphin. Let's see if this picture's even going to load. It was like a particularly angry looking dolphin, which is just so awesome. I changed my mind. I do want marine like underwater figures, but I want Deep Six and Finback first on my list now. Tristan said eye-bleedingly bright 90s colors. Yes. And they were terrible. And they looked like they were stained because they had like two different colors on them a lot of time. Cesspool would be outstanding. Imagine his head sculpt, says Chris. Yes. So Cesspool, let me bring Cesspool up here. Cesspool had sort of like a deformed face. The result of some toxic sludge. Now my computer is not cooperating here. It doesn't want to give me a nice big picture of cesspool, but here I'll share this and we'll sort of let me see what I can do here. So he was sort of deformed by some sludge. But sort of on this page we can look to like he came. So this is the backpack, and the backpack he filled up with water, and the hose was an actual hose, and it plugged into their weapons, and they were little water guns. You could actually like squirt water. You could squirt water with these figures. It would be amazing to me if they continue, like if they kept that, if they did them in classified and they kept the water gun aspect. I think that would be genius. Again, I can only imagine how divisive it would be to have eco warriors with water guns, but I want it, and I will not apologize for wanting that. The other sub team. So I got two left, and I'll try to make them quick because we're nearly at an hour. But two left. Sky Patrol is one. I think somebody already mentioned. Oh no, nobody mentioned Sky Patrol, but somebody did mention the next one. But we'll get to that. Sky Patrol was great. They came with parachutes. The parachutes never really worked properly. I don't know if they weren't designed right or if the figures were too heavy for the parachutes. The reason I think this one is probably the most long shot of all of them is because essentially we didn't get any characters in Sky Patrol that were sort of existing characters. Um, all cool figures, but we didn't get a version of Roadblock, or we didn't get a version of Duke or Snake Eyes or Scarlet or anything like that. It was all new characters in the sub team. What they did get was like really cool chrome plated versions of vehicles, like the Sky Raven, Sky Shark, Sky Hawk, Sky Havoc. For a team that is essentially air, they all have parachutes. They're all sort of up in the air. The Havoc never really made any sense to me, but I didn't have it as a kid anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I think they're cool designs. I just don't. Chris says the bodies are all repainted vehicle drivers. Yes, I was aware. I was made aware of that a couple months ago. But I mean, like by extension, most of the vehicle drivers I don't even think are sort of at the top of most people's lists. With a couple exceptions, right? Like I think Clutch might be higher up on a few people's lists, or a couple like that, like the Stinger driver maybe, just because people like that gray Cobra troop builder. Yeah, I mean, Chris, you could definitely get away with sort of pre-paints. Yeah, but that's like what I'm sort of suggesting is like it's like it's a pre-paint of a long shot character, or a repaint of a long shot character in a lot of ways. I also, Sky Patrol was a little bit later. I don't know how popular Sky Patrol sort of was as a line. Like I said, I loved it as a kid. I'm guessing, Chris, that you probably did too. I think our interests tend to line up a lot when it's. James says I'd love a few drivers like Cover Girl, Wild Bill, or Thunder. Yes, so there are a few exceptions, right? Like Cover Girl was a driver, Wild Bill was a driver. I'm trying to think of other ones that were drivers. Like there were other drivers that were more main characters than others, is essentially what I'm saying. Like I don't know how much demand there is for the vehicle drivers, and if there's not enough demand for the vehicle drivers, I don't know by extension if pre-paints or repaints to get Sky Patrol is really like a likely scenario. Chris, the first Sky Patrol vehicle I got was an imported Canadian Sky Shark. Well, there you go. There's the Canadian connection by way of the UK. How have I never heard that before? I also managed to get a Canadian Pulverizer when I was a kid too. I think I did know that you got that. I think I did know that one. But Larry, Ace came with the Sky Striker. Yes, and I don't foresee us getting a Sky Striker. So I could see us getting, but like Ace, I think might be. I think Cover Girl and Clutch are more likely. Ace might be one of those sort of outside long shots that everybody knows Ace, but I think there's a long list of figures before we get some of those characters. It's just all I'm saying. Which is why I think Sky Patrol is maybe sort of a long shot in that respect. Now, it was mentioned before, and I would love to see it. Here's one where we get versions of sort of core characters, but in very different decos, very different molds. that Duke is not the Duke that we have on the shelf. We are not, and I'm speaking, of course, about Star Brigade, which was a pretty big departure from anything that sort of had come before it. Um, Chris says, hopefully, when Hasbro have made trillions on classifieds, they can start doing big vehicles, and then we can get all the Sky Patrol figures and all the Sky Patrol vehicles, or versions of them. The Skyhawk and the Sky Shark, I think, would be great. I think they would be the right size. They wouldn't be too big. I am very much sort of firmly planted in the camp that doesn't. I mean, I don't want a classified flag. I don't want a classified Sky Striker. I don't want a classified Night Raven. They would just be too bloody big. Like, I don't even have enough like ceiling to sort of hang them all from. That's just sort of my personal opinion. Tristan said, "Mean in the middle. Release Ace in his Earth core armor from Inhumanoids." Maybe. I mean, you could get it. You could create a character. You could create Ace with a different deco. You could completely change his outfit or something like that. Yeah, for sure. And I'm not saying I don't want those characters, right? Like, I bring them on. It's just, for me, like, pilots without something to fly is kind of a weird. It's a weird scenario, right? I guess you could have a diorama with like the break room, and you could just have them all sitting. The Cobra. You could have Strato Vipers and stuff just hanging out, waiting for their sort of call up or something like that, with coffee mugs, something ridiculous. Yeah, Chris, we've only got umpteen versions of Roadblock, so let's bring on the next one. I think if they did Star Brigade, I could see it, like, in the way. So this is sort of what I thought. Follow me down this path for a moment. So if they design, so in the same way that I said, like, if we get Snow Job or Blizzard or an Arctic character, my hope is that we will get enough of them that I can buy a few and do head swaps. What if they come up with sort of like a space suit, and they do different decos for different characters? So you could have, you could get that Roadblock figure, but that Roadblock figure is already a repaint, right? You could do, I think Robo Joe might be sort of a bridge too far, is sort of what I'm getting at. But if we get space, I imagine Countdown will get the nod. Yeah, I think I could see that for sure. And again, like Countdown, we got a couple different versions of it, and that figure could get reused. But then like Barricade is a figure that I would love to get, and there's versions of Barricade, and he appears in Star Brigade as Gears as well. Like, there's different stuff that you could do. Payload, there's a couple different versions. Like, what I'm getting at is, like, with some of these figures, once we sort of got later in the line, there was a lot more repaint. And I think you could get away with doing sort of 3 or 4 Star Brigade figures if they were all the same figure, essentially, but just different decos and different head sculpts or something like that. And then that kind of goes for Cobra too, because you could do. Now, I don't know if you'd have to do, the bat, this version of the bat, but maybe you could, right? Maybe there could be a deluxe sort of bat figure, and maybe, one or two, maybe you do Destro and Cobra Commander and Star Brigade or something like that. I don't know. Tristan said, "Wait, is Roadblock or Heavy Duty in Star Brigade?" It's Roadblock in Star Brigade. I think Hasbro learned about doing vehicles with Star Wars Black Series are hit and miss. Yes, I think you're right. I think, interestingly though, like, when I think of Star Wars, there's sort of a weird like so many of the Star Wars vehicles are like starships, right? So they're really quite big. Like if you did, they did the TIE fighter and it was 4 feet tall. You know, they couldn't possibly do a Millennium Falcon. An X-wing would be really really big. Um, but I think like when you look at the land speeder that they did, or the I consider the Dewback a vehicle as well. Like something of that size, I think is feasible. And I think for GI Joes, it's it's necessary. Whereas like Star Wars was sort of a vehicle line that turned into a figure line because the vehicles were just kind of too big. People got a Millennium Falcon and a couple vehicles, and that was it. With GI Joe, there was so many vehicles, and they're so great for sort of like transport vehicles and stuff too, right? Like if you can get 3 or 4 figures in or sort of on a vehicle, play value goes up. Now, I know that most people that are buying classified are probably, we'll just say, older than children. But I don't know. Tristan, they're separate characters these days. Yes. Chris then says both Heavy Duty and Roadblock are in Star Brigade. You guys are having your own conversation here, but yeah, they're both in there. Sorry. I'm just scrolling down here. You've got this guy and this guy. I think you're sort of talking about sort of one versus the other. They're both listed as Roadblock here, but I think one is Heavy Duty. This one I think was the always Roadblock, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. But call him Heavy Duty. I don't really care. I mean, it's just I'm just talking about getting more figures. And of course, sorry, I was talking about the bats and I realized that I wasn't even sharing the screen. But you could do the bats as a deluxe figure, and then do a couple figures, some sort of Viper and Destro, and sort of away you go. I mean, if we were to get Star Brigade, I think we're talking about sort of 4, 5, 6 years from now. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Oh yeah, sorry, there he is. You're talking about Heavy Duty. He's in the top row there in green. So Heavy Duty's there, and then Roadblock is below him. And they did 2 versions of Roadblock as well. I love the orange and the black, like the kind of classic space suit look. I mean, they're just all really really great figures, in my opinion. Sorry, I'll come back to that one, Tristan. Larry, Snowspeeder was amazing. Yes. The other thing that I keep suggesting, Snowspeeder was a standard release. It was not a HasLab. The TIE Fighter wasn't a HasLab. Dewback wasn't a HasLab. Landspeeder wasn't a HasLab. They could do these as standard release. If they did them as HasLab, I think they could do more with them, but I don't necessarily want more to be done with them. I want more of them. I would be much happier with a vamp where I had to put my own stickers on and it was one color than and it was like $100 rather than a $300 vamp that has tons of paint apps. Now that's just me personally, because I would like to have 2 or 3 versus 1. So sort of however that works out in terms of the costing and stuff like that is more what I'm curious about. But time will tell. Chris, I did scroll to the top and I did show the Heavy Duty Armor Tech version. Those Armor Tech figures were so cool, but they just didn't, they looked weird. They didn't fit, and they had like blaster arms and stuff like that. They were fun, but Tristan, I buy Titan class Transformers. That's big enough. I don't need 6-inch scale jets and tanks. Yes, exactly. And I don't even need Titan class Transformers because they're too big. Larry, still say his tank going to be a HasLab. You could be right. I mean, they could go that route, and it could be, it's kind of a safe play to test the waters, right? Everybody's saying, oh, I want classified scale vehicles. Well, if they go the HasLab route, it's kind of a put your money where your mouth is type of scenario, right? If I had my pick, I want the Vamp. I want the Vamp in sort of whichever sort of avenue they decide to release it. Like I said, I'm sort of hoping for more of a standard retail release because I think price wise that is more likely to be sort of a more manageable price point. But if they did it as a HasLab and they did it right, I'd be all about that too. The Sky Striker at 230 was it 220 or 230 US with everything that you got with that. If they do the Vamp or a His tank or something like that in that sort of price range with that sort of level of, if you get a couple figures with it and you get a couple sort of accessories with it and a couple things, like I could see it, I could maybe start a GoFundMe to fund HasLab. Is that, nah, I don't think I could do that. I couldn't bring myself to do that, but maybe we'll get everybody to chip in and then we can share it. Like, when we were, when you're a kid and like everyone you knew had like one of the vehicles and everybody could sort of get together and play with all of the vehicles. Maybe we'll go that route. We'll have a meetup every year, 2 years, whatever. Anyway, that's all I had. That's all the sub teams I sort of had pulled up. Like I said, I didn't get into Dreadnoks. I didn't get into Iron Grenadiers. I didn't get into October Guard. There are other sort of teams within GI Joe that I definitely think that they'll do. I was just sort of wanted to have a little bit of fun exploring some of the more obscure ones or some of the less likely to happen ones. Any final questions, final comments before we wrap it up? We're about an hour and we'll be about an hour and 15 minutes. Or are we good? Is that was a good chat. That was a fun one. For lacking in news, it's Chris, I think you can speak to this too, right? Like the less news there is, the more time you feel like you have to go on tangents, and sometimes if you got news and it's bang 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 bang, and you're 40 minutes and you go, well, that's it. Let's call it a day. But when you got nothing to talk about and you got to talk about random stuff, it can get away from you real quick. False sense of security. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, oh, this will be a quick one. I'll be in and out here in no time. And then you go, oh, there's 37 sub teams to pick from. Larry, great stream as always. Thank you, my friend. I'm happy to have you guys along for the ride. I'm just happy to sort of talk about this stuff and to have like a sounding board for my ranting, essentially. Tristan, when are we expecting more reveals anyway? Yojo June? Yojo June is a lock. I mean, we're definitely going to see some reveals in June. We may, I kind of think if sort of history has sort of shown us anything, when they have had big events like Yojo June, there's typically a figure that's sort of released sort of right at that time or right around that time that is available sort of right away as well. So it'll be interesting to see what that is. We haven't technically had a reveal, like an official reveal for Mindbender. Hasbro hasn't said anything about Mindbender. So I could see us sort of hearing something about that before June. And at that time, Chris, I think you said this, and I certainly don't disagree. I could see some of the pipeline reveals getting physical reveals before June, and then essentially have June be like a completely fresh, kickoff to sort of the second part of the year, the second part of the 40th anniversary. Which is to say, like, new figures up for pre-order. new pipeline reveals, new everything. Maybe that's when we see a classified scale HasLab project. I think if they're going to do a HasLab project, this is the year for it. And if they're going to do a G.I. Joe, another G.I. Joe HasLab project, Yojo June makes sense. So, Larry, I need to go over my extra figs and put them on the board in case someone needs them. Yeah, do it, man. There's always people looking for stuff. And it usually gets snatched up pretty quick. Tristan, Transformers and Power Rangers had live streams last week, so we might get a live stream soon. Yes, I think we're due for a live stream for G.I. Joe. And again, though, going all the way back to sort of what we were talking about at the beginning, right? Transformers tend to get more of the sort of the live stream updates. Power Rangers tends to get more. Black Series gets more. Marvel Legends gets more because there's more of that product. We get sort of fixated on what we like. So we sort of get fixated on the idea that there aren't any live streams for G.I. Joe, which isn't quite accurate. It's just that there's less stuff, so there's less reveals, so there's less live streams, so on and on. Anyway, on that note, we'll sort of cross our fingers that we get some reveals sooner rather than later. We will cross our fingers that we start getting some shipments sooner rather than later. As it says down at the bottom of the screen there, hit up eCollectibles. If you didn't get your pre-orders in, get them in now. If you didn't get your pre-orders in, what are you waiting for? Would be my question. But anyway, again, thank you guys for joining me. Always a pleasure. Always fun to chat with you guys. Always fun to check in, bounce ideas off each other, speculate incorrectly a lot of the time. Chris says, have a great rest of your Easter Sunday. I absolutely will, and I actually have tomorrow off as well, so I'm gonna hopefully enjoy that tomorrow as well. I hope we have more sunshine. I had a lot of stuff to get done today. I might have a little more free time tomorrow, fingers crossed. But I will see. Well, I won't see you guys again next week, but you will see me again next week because I will do another video next week. And on that note, thank you all for joining me, and have a wonderful rest of your Sunday afternoon. And if you're lucky enough to have the day off tomorrow, enjoy it. And I will chat with you guys again soon. Bye bye.